So people are starting to file in now. I'm gonna wait, I'll wait maybe 60 seconds just to kind of allow people to, get into the room.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
No
feel grateful to learn from all of you. So thank you.
I'm doing my best to keep everything calm here. Obviously at home, I have 3 kids under 5 years old here that are doing homeschooling.
Oh my God.
And a dog that could go crazy at any moment. So please forgive me.
I love that. That could be great entertainment. Do you have a cat too, by chance?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I have a cat. She might show up.
I would love that. Oh my God, that would be fun to see your kid. Oh my God, you have 3 kids?
Well, I have 4 kids actually.
You have 4?
Yeah. My teenage son, he knows how to be quiet. He turns 18 in April, so.
I don't know how you do that. That's pretty admirable.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that offline. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. What will certainly be a great conversation about, you guessed it, artist residencies. New York Academy of Art on a regular basis presents professional practice lectures and presentations. Today, we're focusing on 3 great artist residencies here in the United States. I'm going to get right to it since we only have less than an hour for today's presentation. I'd like to introduce Christopher Carroll, who's the program manager at Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, where he is responsible for the logistical and technical support of the school's application and programming efforts for the past 10 years. He also serves as the manager of the school's media lab and lecture series during its 9-week summer program in Maine. A visual artist himself, Christopher first joined the Skowhegan community when he was a participant in the program in 2008. Thank you for joining us, Christopher.
Thanks. If it's okay, I would like to take control of the screen. So if let's do that real quick, because I kind of have a couple images to just show while I do a quick spiel, a 5-minute spiel for you.
Sure.
So again, thanks for inviting me to the discussion. I love talking about Skowhegan and residencies in general. Like I said, I kind of run the program, but with a small team of 6 other people. And I was also a participant, so I can speak to a lot of different aspects of the experience in general. My talk I usually give about Skowhegan takes about an hour. So in order to introduce the program in 5 minutes, I thought I'd just quickly introduce the basic architecture of the program and then show you a short 2.5-minute video that we made a couple of years ago that I think visualizes what we do really well and will hopefully illustrate my talking points a little better. So are you guys seeing these images? Just to make sure the tech's working? Okay, great. So neither a school in the traditional sense nor a retreat, Skowhegan is a residency program based on the vitality and energy of the 65 participants that gather each summer on our campus. It was founded in 1946 by artists and for artists. It's still currently governed by a body of artists. The Skowhegan program lasts 9 weeks. It's in rural Maine, and participants can only attend once. As a participant, you'll receive a studio, a dorm, 3 meals a day, as well as access to our facilities, our sculpture shop, our fresco shop, media lab, production room, ceramics, and a library that's composed of over 14,000 of art-related books. So when you first arrive on campus, I'm going to paint a picture for you. You'll immediately find yourself fully immersed in acres of farmland, forests, lakefront, and like I said, a community of other artists. As you can see, Skowhegan's campus covers over 300 acres and includes more than 60 buildings. Pictures don't do justice to the scale of things, especially when our context for daily architecture is a place like New York City. It feels very large, isolated, and a little unreal in comparison to the city. This extreme shift in the landscape is really what initiates the experience of being in a place like Skowhegan. The environment's just so different. You feel immediately different yourself. How you choose to compensate for the shifts in your daily life and your studio practice is kind of what makes Skowhegan so great. Okay, so that was my quick spiel. Now I'm just going to quickly play this 2-minute video because I think it really takes an hour of content and does it in 2 minutes. So let me know if you can't hear anything.
Yeah, open it up and get in.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Skowhegan. I'd never been any place north of Baltimore. So I'm like, where's Skowhegan? And they said, Maine. I said, Maine? Way up there. I don't know if I can go up there. And I started making inquiry of a couple of people who had been.
Skowhegan is an incredibly unusual place because it's not a residency. It's not a place you go to retreat. Not a place you go to get away from other people, but you go to engage and you go to listen. You don't need to go there with goals, but you can go there searching.
Skowhegan is the pivot, and people that get in there, for better or worse, that's where they make the decide the eternal question, which is very simple. Wake up in the morning. Are you going to go to the studio and make art, or are you not? Two alternatives, and that's every morning, every day, all the rest of your life. That's the decision you got to make. Skowhegan pointed it up, because that's the two sides of the mountain. One's the sun shining, and one's it's all gray. Which you're going to do?
So I got the courage to go up to accept a scholarship, and life has never been the same since.
That was what happened at Skowhegan. You're going to go to work, or going to go down to the coast and drink beer.
So I'll end it there. I hope that had audio. I didn't check. Okay, dude.
It definitely had audio.
Okay, great. I want to make sure that's.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Christopher. Obviously, we'll be coming back to you with some specific questions about Skowhegan. I want to introduce another one of our panelists today, Philip Himberg, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. It's Himberg, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Is the executive director of the McDowell Colony and oversees the creative mission as well as the financial well-being of the nation's first multidisciplinary residency program. Himberg arrived at McDowell in May of 2019 from the Sundance Institute, where he spent 23 years guiding all aspects of the Sundance Theatre Program, including its theater labs and many satellite residency programs nationally as well as globally in several locations in East Africa, the Middle East, and North Africa. Philip, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll hand the floor over to you for a few minutes about your residency.
Thanks so much. I prepared a little slide thing here, which I hope I can do. Where is it? There we go. Can you all see
That's great.
this? Okay. Is it full screen? I hope so.
So now it's in sort of like presenter view. You could go through it this way, or you could.
I can do this.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Okay, great. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you to Peter Drake and to Dexter for hosting this. It's really an honor to be here with all the artists who are attending. As was said, I have been the executive director at McDowell for really only 20 months. The first part of my tenure here was kind of fun, the first 8 or 9 months. And then when the pandemic hit, my responsibilities and the world of McDowell changed dramatically, as I'm sure we'll talk about later today. These are some images of the place. The picnic basket is sort of iconic McDowell. When I interviewed for the job and I said to the board of directors, what's the one thing you would never change about McDowell? They said, the picnic basket. It's been delivered to artists for their lunch since 1907, I guess. And we don't disturb the artists. They're in their studios working and they know their food will be there when they open the door at noon. And then usually in normal times, they would come together for dinner. I'll talk about how that's changed more recently. You know, when I used to work for Sundance, Robert Redford was very, he used to always say, everything begins with place. And having just looked at Skowhegan, you can see how important that topography is to the work that happens there. The same is true with McDowell. This is a studio for a visual artist called Alexander. There are 32 studios on the ground. The majority of them are live-in studios where people can sleep and there's a bathroom they can use and all the rest. And then there are a few sort of group homes for those who do not wish to stay overnight in their studios. But I think like Skowhegan, there's a kind of profound architecture to McDowell. And I don't mean necessarily the individual buildings, although those are also beautifully designed and rendered. But there is a confluence, I think we'd all agree, a kind of an alchemy between nature and art, which is a real thing. And most of our residents are not from rural areas. Some are, but most are from urban areas. And so being in this kind of quietude, this bucolic atmosphere, I think very much directly, impacts how they see their work. We also had a drone photographer show up and say, "Can I do this over your property?" This is a visual studio there as well. This is our library. It's the James Baldwin Library, named for Mr. Baldwin, who was a fellow at McDowell 3 or 4 times. He wrote Giovanni's Room there, as well as other places. You can see it was an addition to the original library, and the new one went up in about 2017. This is the original main building. It used to be called Colony Hall, but we are no longer the McDowell Colony. We dropped the word colony back in June. So we're looking for a new name for this edifice. It's where people have their dinners together. And these are just some other photographs of the place in different seasons and the individual artist studios. I think this particular studio was the first one built. It was built by Mrs. McDowell, Marion McDowell, for her husband, Edward, who's considered to be America's first classical composer. And she wanted her husband to have a place to work. And so she built this for him. It does no longer functions as a working studio, but it's a piece of our history. And then a few others. I would say that people who come to McDowell, the artists who come in, would say that even though they spend 80% of their time in their studios in a kind of, I would say, a chosen isolation, that the other piece of it is coming together at dinner and often for sharing their work after dinner if they so choose. It's never a requirement. But when they leave, even though it's 80%, 20%, it feels to me, if you ask them, they'll say it was sort of a 50-50 experience, that the ways in which they interacted with their colleagues, very often collaborations that happen because of their meeting at McDowell, end up being moving forward into the world. This is the room inside Colony Hall. This is our dinners together. There are 3 tables. People meet for dinner, which are very lively and exciting times. You've got choreographers talking to painters, talking to playwrights, talking to composers, talking to interdisciplinary artists, and the conversation is actually quite special. This is a room can't even tell, this is a room in the old part of the library where folks are after dinner sharing work. This is a picture of the library again, library at night. During this time of COVID, when we've reopened, which I can talk about in more detail later, a lot of folks gathered in front of this library. We put a giant screen TV inside so people could watch the election returns when they were there on election night, and then the inauguration more recently. There is still room in this space during our modified residency for 4 artists to use the space by signing up in the library and being safe and having space around them. This is an after-dinner conversation between 2 artists. More spaces. They're all quite different from each other. And McDowell is closed to the public. So there's only one day a year when we open the doors to everyone for free, and it's called Medal Day. It began in the 1950s. The first honoree with the Edward McDowell Medal was Thornton Wilder, who also was a multiple-time attendee. He wrote Our Town famously in Peterborough. It's ostensibly about Peterborough. It's that kind of place in southern New Hampshire. And people gather, they have picnics, and then after they gather and see the ceremony, they get to visit the artist studios. What you see above on the top are what are called tombstones. Every artist studio has tombstones, and every artist who enters that studio when they leave signs on. So you might be sitting in a studio and look up and see, oh, you know, Faith Ringgold used this studio, or Leonard Bernstein used this studio, and hope you're not sort of intimidated by the kind of list of people who've been there before. This is the one day that people come to visit. This is Martha Mook, who is an extraordinary violist, and she's giving her after dinner sharing. No, this is probably not. This is probably a medal day, and she's inviting people in to see her work. Yeah, that's it. I'll make sure I didn't say I kept everything that I wanted to say here. I think we can, yep, I think that's probably all for now, and I'll turn it over to Sharon. You're on mute.
Unmute myself. You know, I'm gonna get the Zoom thing figured out as soon as I stop using Zoom. So again, thank you, Philip. Thanks so much. So next up is Sharon Louden. Sharon is an artist, educator, advocate for the arts, editor of the Living and Sustaining a Creative Life series of books, and the artistic director of the Chautauqua Visual Arts at Chautauqua Institution. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I threw together a PowerPoint, so I'll do that right now.
Sure.
1 second. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm just gonna go to slideshow. Oh, sorry about that. 1 second. Technical glitch. Sorry about that.
Take your time.
I just want to share too that just like Philip, I haven't been as a director, I haven't been the director for the Chautauqua School of Art for only 2.5 years. But my first teaching job was at Chautauqua. So let's see if we can do this. I hope I'm doing this right. Can everybody see that? Something's going on.
Definitely can see your slides.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. Sorry about this. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I think it's all there.
Backwards since it's not working very well. Okay, sorry about that. So Chautauqua School of Art is from Chautauqua Institution, and Chautauqua Institution has been around since 1874. It was started by 2 founders who had this vision that they needed a place to cultivate culture. So to bring in thought leaders, then would go out into the world and cultivate culture. In our program at Chautauqua, there are many schools. There are dance, music, theater, opera, literary arts, and the visual arts. And the School of Art, similar to Skowhegan in saying it's a school per se, it's not really a school, and it's not really a residency. It's sort of a hybrid of both. So our program's really centered on a core leadership of 8 thought leaders, or 7, and I don't know if I would call myself a thought leader, 7 and myself. But then we have a lot of people who come to Chautauqua. This is Stacey Abrams in 2019. A lot of luminaries that come to Chautauqua, in addition to our core leadership in the visual arts. Chautauqua's had so many luminaries in, I've forgotten what year it was shortly after Chautauqua opened. Ulysses S. Grant gave his first presidential speech at Chautauqua. Booker T. Washington came there, Frederick Douglass, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross was there in 2019. All of these amazing luminaries have been there to create a discourse and conversation. And here, that is how close I was to her. What the great thing about Chautauqua is you can hang out with like Yo-Yo Ma for a week while he's just walking around and say hello. It's a really small community. So this is where the School of Art is. The School of Art actually started in 1909, but Thomas Edison's wife started programming in 1890. This place has a lot of history, and that quad itself has been there since 1909. So like I said, the core leadership that we've developed in the last 2.5 years are are people who have multiple hats. You can't really define them as painting, drawing, sculpture, sculptor. For me, I wanted to devise a program that you don't have any of those divisions. If you're an artist and you feel like your work is visual, come to Chautauqua. We have a lot of different facilities. We have printmaking, sculpture, we have ceramics, we have all different things, big drawing rooms. And then we have a lot of gathering spaces outside, which people just casually come together as a group. And then there's ample time just to work in your studios and have studio visits. We also have a lot of parties with theater and opera, which I love. And I swear to God, I thought visual artists were crazy. Nope. I think opera and theater take the cake for sure. And then sometimes our participants, it's multi-generational. So last year we had ages 21 to 64. We did continue last year online 100%. In fact, I'm really proud, not once since 1874 has Chautauqua stopped. So we had to keep going. And then the year before, all the participants, they were ages 21 to 52. And they all got together and wanted to do a drag show. So they did, and 200 people showed up. It's a very relaxed atmosphere with a lot of time to just chill out and exchange information, and also go to town and just rip it up in these studios. And then people just have time to themselves to experiment. It's really a time for experimentation, gathering. And then also we have an incredible alumni program. So we really feel like once you're with us forever, unless you don't want to be. And then we're in an idyllic place in Western New York where it doesn't get above 85 degrees. And it's right on Chautauqua Lake. So you can go swimming. You can, it seems like it can be as angelic as what Skowhegan showed, that amazing video. That was incredible. But you can do that too. You can go swimming and hike, and you can go hiking around too. You can go kayaking. And that's the rainbow over Chautauqua as we were leaving. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Sorry for the technical
Thank you.
problems.
No problem. No, thank all three of you. So we have about 80 people roughly joining us here today, and without doing a poll, I'm going to go ahead and guess that most of the people joining us here today are here because they're interested in learning more about ways they can better their odds of getting into your residency. Let's just call it what it is. And while they're probably also interested in other residencies and how to prepare themselves. So I'm sure you get this all the time, so I might as well just get like the most obvious question out of the way for each of you. If someone were to ask you, what can an artist do to prepare themselves to participate in your residency? What are you looking for? I'll start with you, Christopher.
Okay, I get that question a lot because I do manage the application side of the program. We're not looking for anything in particular. We are visual artists, unlike McDowell and Chautauqua, that kind of do multiple things. We're really strictly visual art, so we're not really looking at applications that involve writers or music. Although, we don't really draw any hard lines. If you can make your application fit into our prerequisites, then we'll take you. So if you're someone who's maybe a writer and can turn that into a visual practice somehow, through creativity and an application, then you should try. Same with sound. Where's the line between music and so we don't draw hard lines. Honestly, we get about 2,500 applications for 65 slots. We are only the 9 weeks. We don't do it all year or anything like that. We're just the summer. And we have to narrow that down to 65 people. And it's really terrible. We hate it. We want everyone to come to increase your chances. I would say, pay attention to the application. We have to go through a lot of applications. And so we very clearly lay out some guidelines. One, how to apply, read those instructions. And then two, our application is entirely visual. There's no written component to it at all. So your portfolio is critical to whether or not you'll gain admissions into the program. So put together a good edit of your either 10 images or video. We have different kind of portfolio selections you can apply with. Like, take your time with it. Like, take your time with it. Show it to someone who's never seen your work. Think about how you're telling a story of your practice. Like, there's going to be a panel of judges. It's completely blind when they're looking at it. They don't see where you're from, how old you are, whether or not you went to school, whether or not you had a cool show. They don't care. They are looking at your portfolio and your portfolio alone, and then they're making a class from that. Eventually, that biographical data does come into it, but not until the very end. So pay attention to that portfolio. Make sure you're kind of paying attention to our guidelines, and very creatively follow those guidelines, and kind of know when you should follow them and when you can maybe break them a little bit. So I can't say we're looking for something specific, but with that many applications, it's very easy when you want everyone to go to throw an application that forgot to upload 3 images. You know, like, make sure the application is complete, make sure we're seeing your best work. I can go on for hours and hours about it, but I want to make sure we all get it on that.
Right. Well, no, I do appreciate that. And one of the things you said that really resonates with me is this idea that, you know, you have to just make sure that you're showing your best work, and also getting feedback from other people, not just relying on your own opinion about what is your best work.
Because you might be very familiar with, say, an installation, sculpture, anything, and then you take that for granted, and then someone else is looking at it and they're like, is this a photo of an object? Is the photo the art? Is the object the art? Like stuff that you would never even think about it until you're with a stranger, and the stranger is asking you questions you had never considered. Like, is this backwards? Like, what am I even looking at? And working with peers is a way to get past that.
Thank you so much. And Philip, so there's so much going on in McDowell. I mean, you know, I started peeling back the layers of the onion, trying to understand, you know, like, you know, the history of the place and the types of people that have come through there, because it's not just for, you know, visual artists. It's not just for, you know, so how do you answer that question? Your answer is probably even more complex. When someone says,
well, actually, Christopher's answer could suffice in many ways for McDowell, particularly around the visual arts. I would emphasize that the way in which you present your work, because I've been in those panel rooms and I've watched that process happen. And a lot of those questions come up. Is this the image? Is this the photographic image of the image? And is there enough light on the image? So just in terms of visual arts, I would just echo what Christopher said. We support 7 different disciplines. They do overlap sometimes, but they're architecture, playwriting, all the literary arts, from journalism, nonfiction, fiction, poetry, the visual arts, all of that entails music composition, film, and then something called interdisciplinary, which sort of allows you to apply across programs. Each of those programs has a panel. The panels shift every few years. They're your peers. They're very diverse panels. As was just mentioned before, you know, even though it says on our website right now, you know, that the criteria for admission is excellence in your craft, those excellence isn't talked about in those rooms. What's talked about is risk-taking and originality, and ideas that are new to the panel, or maybe ideas that aren't new, but the lens on the idea is very, very new. They get very excited by sort of innovative ideas. And you submit a project that you intend to work on, and you also submit some of your work, a body of your work, one thing in particular usually, or a body if it's a novel, it might be your former novel, what have you. And we get around 1,200 applications in a normal year. I'm talking about normal years, which is not what's happening now. But in a normal year, and I will say that our application process is now open for the first time since COVID. I think April 15th is the cutoff. And those folks will be, that work will be seen by panels in July or June. And then those artists will come sort of late in 2021 and then into 2022. In a normal year, 300 and some odd artists come to McDowell. In a normal year, they can come between 2 weeks minimum to 2 months max. And it kind of functions like a hotel, so people come and go. So your cohort is constantly being kind of refreshed. New people are coming in, and people are leaving as you're there. So the 32 people in residence sort of shift. That's not happening right now during COVID, but that's the normal way it works. And I think the other thing I would just mention is that the one thing about McDowell, may be true for other residencies, is that the people that flourish most of all are those that have some kind of practice, so that they sort of know what it is to be in a dark forest for weeks or a couple of months, and sort of be able to sort of move themselves to do the work they want to do. We don't watch them. We don't know what work they're doing. And many of them, I don't know how many, probably sit around a lot and think deeply about their work. They might be perplexed by a problem. They may spend a lot of time hiking in the woods, or if it's warm, going for a swim, and may not come out with a novel or 5 short stories. That's perfectly wonderful, because an artist, as we know, needs time to ruminate, needs time to, just think, to ponder, to be inspired. I would say the majority of people do come out with a lot of work accomplished, but if you're a younger artist and don't yet have a practice, you could occasionally find yourselves sort of at odds with yourself in a place like McDowell. There's no one to mentor you, except there are people you are talking to in the evenings. And of course, everyone gets stuck and needs someone to sort of help them through. But I would say that that's probably something to think about. And the other thing is being in the country. It's not like a brilliantly lit space. It's 450 acres. There are lots of squirrels and occasional other animals, lots of deer. And it's just being aware of the fact that you might want to be the kind of artist that will do well in a space like that. Some people need urban environments and need noise, in order to sort of make their work. But that's the other thing I would say at this moment around how to apply.
Thanks so much for that, Philip. And Sharon, how would you answer that question?
Thank you. So as I'm an artist, as Christopher, I'm assuming, Philip, are you an artist? Are you a visual artist?
No, I'm a playwright actually, and a director. So yeah, I have plays that I've written.
As we're all creative, we actually probably can't stand applying for things that are arduous. So when I came in, I was like, screw this, we're going to be able to have a very easy application. I would say my answer is a mixture of both what Christopher and Philip had said. I would just want to clarify, our program is visual, but we don't define by media, period. So as Christopher was saying, it could be somebody who's based in writing, but their practice is visual. But we do require an application, and actually the written part of it is important to us. It's a mixture of the written part as well as the portfolio. We only ask for 8 images and an application, period, and your resume. That's it. It's very, very easy. We have the same jury on, though, myself and the mentors every year, because we want to get to know the artists through their work and develop a sense of community. Myself and the mentors, the 7 mentors, so it's 16 eyeballs of looking at your work. And then there are hundreds of applications, and we narrowed down to 38. We also, in the last 2 years, provided 100% full funding. So there's a good chance that may happen this year, although not guaranteed. And a lot of perks from a lot of other organizations that we partner with. The thing I think that may set us apart is that if you don't get into our program, you get feedback on your application, as well, every single person does, as well as we're going to do a collective Zoom meeting with everybody who didn't get in, because we're really based in community, and our whole program is set up where we basically curate a group that stays together. In the last 2 years, they've all stayed together. And then in addition, access to a mentor class with one of our lead faculty. Because for me, all the people who feel like a rejection is a rejection, it's not. It's a difference of opinion. You're paying $30 for a slide room fee. You should get something out of that. And just because you're not getting into a program doesn't mean you're any less of the people who got in. So we really feel very passionate about that. And I would just say, just like what Christopher and Philip said, pay attention to the application. Our program, though, I think in contrast probably to McDowell, and I'm not sure with Skowhegan, but we really love people who are in between, like graduate school or transitions in their life. And also we really believe, especially with my work with Creative Capital, adults need mentors. So they always seem to need mentors. And so our programs are really based on that mentorship, whether it be through with the group itself, also with other schools, with opera and theater and dance and whomever. Collaboration is a big thing for us. And then with the mentors themselves. So that's what I would just say.
Thanks so much for sharing that.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. No, please.
I was just gonna say, just to riff off that, because I do think it's really important. Although we don't give feedback, we do constantly express the need to stay positive and to keep applying. And just because if you say didn't get in before, or you know a lot of people that didn't get in, you could very well get in the next year. We've had people that have applied 10 years in a row with the same application, the same portfolio, and the 10th year they get in. You know, we always say you'll get in the right year, but I mean, as I guess we were all saying, like, as a creative artist, I get rejected from stuff all the time. Like, don't take it personally, don't let it get you down, and keep applying, because it's not like, oh, they don't like me. It's like, I mean, we're a little different, but
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's something that I don't think could be overstated. So I recently launched a residency in Japan. Without getting into the weeds on that, the reason I'm bringing it up is that for many years I've been on the juror side, where you know, an organization may ask my opinion and the opinions of others to review applications and weigh in. And there's an emotional investment in that, but there's a far greater emotional investment when you're looking at many applications and you know that you can't say yes to all of them. And the thing that I often say to artists, whether they're visual artists or in other disciplines, when it comes to this kind of a process where you're applying for something, is that you have to almost automate the process to the extent that you are frequently applying to things. You're not over investing your emotions into a yes from any one single thing. And sure, we all have these goals where it's like, man, if I could just get into that thing, then everything else is going to be perfect after that. But I think that it's often a mistake to, as the old adage go, put all of your eggs into one basket, right? You have to have different irons in the fire and different opportunities that you're working on. And also, Christopher, great point. Applying to the same residency multiple years with perhaps the same work or different work isn't a sign that you can't take no for an answer. It's part of the process. There's a limited amount of space that any one residency can actually accommodate. If you're receiving, say, in your case, 1,200 applications or more, and you have space for 60, 75 people, just the sheer numbers state that even great work won't be accepted. There's just not enough physical space, right?
Yeah,
and I would add to, sorry, Phil, you go.
I was going to say, I don't know if someone was going to bring this up, but there is an extraordinary umbrella organization called the Alliance of Artist Communities, AAC, which represents at least many of us. There are hundreds of residencies across the world, and it's probably a good resource. They have an online resource, and they also, if you're on their mailing list, let you know when deadlines are coming up. So you may be able to peruse that. Many of our colleagues are, you know, I think the Ucross Foundation or Gerasi or, you know, Mid-Atlantic. There's so many places that you can choose to go that you shouldn't limit yourself. And there may be places that you're more attuned to than others as well.
I want to talk about how each of your residencies and programs is sort of shifting and dealing with the pandemic, and obviously for residency, that's a really serious thing to try to navigate. But there's a question that came in that I actually would like to jump on first before we do that. And the question is, are the residencies free? And if not, what are the costs associated with the programs? And you may not need to get into hyper specificity, because I know it's kind of like on a case-by-case basis, but I guess at the heart of the question is, does an artist need to pay to participate in the residency?
Well, I'll just jump in and say, you know, our costs are on the website, but we have so much fun. We have a lot of funding. And if someone gets into our program, we're going to bust our ass to get them in for free, like we did 2 years in a row since I took over the program. So for me, I really believe that someone shouldn't have that burden going to a residency program. Eventually, we would love to give stipends, and that's what we're working on too. So I feel that if someone's going to take off from their life, we need to give them something in exchange for that, for their presence to be with us. So I would say apply, apply, apply. And then if you get in, we're going to run to the ends of the earth to try to get that funding for you in every way possible. And like I said, we've been very successful in doing so.
For McDowell, there is actually no cost to come to the program. We support all the fellowships, as we call them. And we also have, in addition to paying for your time there and providing all your meals, there are stipends you can apply for scholarship, so that if you have, as many people do, most have expenses back home that you need to continue to pay for, you can apply for those. And there are various different ones that exist. I would say about 65% or so of the artists that come to McDowell, sometimes more, apply for those funds, and we almost always have enough to cover those. They're modest. We also have travel grants, so that if you can't get yourself to McDowell, there's another group of stipends that are covering your way to get there. But once you're there, you're taken care of.
Oh, that's fantastic. So a question came in to all of the panelists. I guess you may all be seeing this question. I'll read it verbatim. It seems like it's someone that knows you, Sharon. It says, thank you all for being here. What advice do you have for emerging artists who are applying for competing in this heavy applicant volume environment without the ability to ask for feedback, or maybe they have limited or no access to alumni programs and they're looking to improve their application? The person is saying that they've sat in on information sessions, but it appears to be very little access to some programs if you don't have a connection or know someone willing to mentor you or encourage you. P.S. Thank you, Sharon, for reminding me about the mantra about rejection, a wonderful reminder. So I'll just put this out there. I guess at the heart of the question is, here you have someone who would like to apply. They're kind of feeling like they're at sea a bit, and they don't have connections. What can they do to strengthen their chances?
We have info sessions. I've given maybe 25 of them so far. So if somebody has a question, just write me. I'll write you right back. So the key to our program is transparency. You can see everything on our website as far as the jury process, the application process, what we're looking for, because I think that the art world is so opaque. This is a way for us to break that. So to me, if you have a question, I will, all the way to the point of me looking at your application, which would not be great because that would be sort of cheating. But if you have questions, just ask us, art@chq.org. So that's what I would say. You don't need a connection to apply to us whatsoever. In fact, we want people actually who are underrepresented, who are actually from marginalized communities, who feel as though that they want pragmatic, not only a community, but pragmatic approaches and opportunities to actually work and go beyond sustainability when they leave us.
Thank you. So change is constant. Thinking about the timeline of when each of your programs were created, we're talking about going back to the latter part of the 19th century, the early part of the 20th century. And so we've seen all sorts of political shifts, wars, what have you, but nothing quite like what the past year has been like, at least not in the United States. So how have your programs been shifting and adapting to this new environment that we're existing in now? And how can an in-person residency actually thrive in this environment?
Well, we haven't been. We had to cancel. It's the unique nature of our program. We spent a year doing a lot of investigation, working with healthcare professionals, other schools, and we couldn't find a way to adapt the kind of intense community atmosphere and kind of rejection of routine that is kind of at the heart of our program, and do so that is both safe for our Maine community as well as our on-campus community. And so we had to cancel last summer, and we've also canceled this current summer. I also just really wanted to quickly say there is a tuition for our program, but we also have a very generous financial aid, and anyone who can't afford we'll give you money. We'll find a way to get you up there. So don't let financial need be an obstacle for either the application or for the tuition. I just had to put that out there. So please, there is a tuition. If you can afford it, then we ask you to pay for it. If you can demonstrate a need, then we'll help you out and get you up there. But anyway, yeah, it's been kind of tragic. We are expanding our capacity to give more space and privacy to people. So hopefully, even in 2022, I'm sure we'll still have some aftermath. We're, fingers crossed, returning to something that allows for intimate community gathering. But if not, we are figuring out a way to expand our space and kind of the limitations of a very specific type of architecture.
Thank you. And Philip, how have you guys been adapting?
We've done a lot of turns and twists. We closed last March 11th and had to sadly send people home. And then we saw this as an opportunity to try some things out. So last August, we did a pilot for virtual McDowell. We had already just accepted a class for late spring, all summer and fall. And so right after folks were accepted and we're very excited, we said, we're closed. So that was devastating. We asked a group, or everyone who had applied, if they'd be interested in a pilot virtual. And 8 people signed up. I mean, there were more that wanted to. 8 people signed up. It was in August. It was led by the artist. It was advised, all the advisement was from alumni fellows as to how to maybe set this up. I thought it was going to be kind of a stopgap measure, you know, like we'll do what we can do, we'll find out something. The embrace of this virtual McDowell by the artists who participated, and they were from all 7 disciplines, 2 returning and 6 new to us, was so intense. I guess it came at the right moment. People hadn't been burned out yet by Zoom, and they were able to meet 2 hours twice a week for the month of August. We did things like send them the picnic basket filled with stuff, including dirt from our garden and seeds from our garden and books of poetry. Because meals were so important, on 2 of those sessions, we called each of the participants and said, where can we have food delivered from your town, restaurant in your town, so you can all, you know, have a meal together twice. If they had families, we'd make sure there was enough food for the entire family to share. And then they designed a kind of, I don't know, curriculum where some of the conversation was about the artist in this moment, what they were feeling, where they were. Each of them had a session to, if they chose, share their work, whether it was literature or a studio tour, if they had a studio they were working in. It ended up being an incredible bonding experience. It did not replace the residency. They were told right up front that this was just an add-on if they wanted to do it. So then they subsequently would come or have come to McDowell. And we also paid everyone a stipend of $1,000. So that assured that they, you know, were able to contribute during this very, very difficult time for artists. So that went to bed. And then on October 23rd, we reopened with a lot of support from, I should say, while we were closed, we gave the entire McDowell campus over to the Monadnock Community Hospital so that first responders, doctors, nurses, and other people could use our spaces, which are ideally set up for isolation. So they were there for several months. We reopened in October. Now it's a modified plan. We are fulfilling our responsibilities to those who had applied and didn't come. So we bring in about, instead of 32 people, we bring in about 12 or 13. Everyone has a live-in studio. Everyone arrives on the same day or within a couple of days of each other. They go to their studios. They're all tested. 3 or 4 days later, they get the results. So far, everyone has been negative. They can come out into the world with masks, wander the 450 acres, use the library, and all the meals are delivered, including dinners. So in a funny way, what they're missing, which is so important, is the immediacy of being in community and being able to hang out together the way they did. They have their studio space. They're very, very excited and grateful for it. The folks on the virtual McDowell didn't have studio space. They just had community, although it was virtual. And we're now using that virtual McDowell this year. There are 4 sessions coming up, and we're actually using them to sort of dig deep and sort of excavate our diversity, equity, inclusion, and access world. So there's one coming up that's put together with our Native alumni. There'll be all Native Indigenous alumni. There will be leaders from the Native and Indigenous communities across the country. And we're going to be meeting for a month, March and April. It's all led by the Native artists to sort of dig into how McDowell can be more effective, more resonant for cohorts of Native American artists across all 7 disciplines. And then as we go through the year, we'll be exploring other underrepresented communities that exist at McDowell already, but not to the degree and the depth that they need to. So this incredible sort of virtual program has allowed us now to do the DEIA work in a way, one part of it, with the artist leading it. That's been happening at McDowell.
Oh, silver lining, huh? And Sharon, how about your program?
We plowed through. So what we did was, I'm really proud of what we did. Because knowledge is knowledge, and that doesn't stop because everybody was still alive, thank God, knock on wood, that we definitely went online. And then what we did was, on the back end, we created a mail art campaign that was pretty aggressive. We sent things to the 38 people in all their towns, created cocktail hours every week. We connected them to the alumni too. They're all connected. And then we also created a map where people were living. And we said, if you want to please do the social distanced if you want to get together. And they did. They actually drove to different places. And then we would put it up on Instagram. We have a really active Instagram profile or channel. And it was really fun. And they have all stayed together. And I'm really proud to say that they've gotten each other opportunities. They still have critique groups. They are thriving. So I just think that it really worked, and we were shocked that it worked. People did online studio visits. All the mentors were there, and we just kept going. And this year we're going to do a hybrid of both. We have a lot of outdoor space, but also we have a lot of ventilation. I thought actually that was a downside to our program a couple years ago, and now it's the upside. So we actually got medical personnel to give us the green light to be able to be there.
Wow, that's great. So we're down to the final few minutes here, and I thank you, Philip, because I see you've answered some of those questions that came in. So obviously on your websites are the details of your respective programs and deadlines or what have you. So we certainly don't need to necessarily get too much into the weeds there. So in the final few minutes here, I'd love to just kind of hear from each of you maybe a brief example of how your residency or program has enhanced the life of an artist that have gone through the program. Maybe something stands out to you. It can be anything.
Well, I was trying to, I have there's practical ones and then kind of conceptual ones, practical being time and space. But I feel like the conceptual one that we probably, I think everyone else on the panel will agree, is it's an opportunity to live and imagine and experience life in a different way, where, well, what you do for your day is to make art or to not make art, to wake up and then choose how you're going to interact with your community. You don't have to commute to work. You don't have to make your own dinner. You don't have to do these things that are constantly popping up to be an obstacle to live an artistic life, to live creatively. Sorry. But when those obstacles are removed, it's kind of like this moment where you can kind of see what life could be. And then hopefully when you leave the different programs, you could take part of that with you because you've seen it happen in reality.
That's great.
I would say that for us, it's definitely an opportunity to create community, number one, and connections, number two. People have gotten jobs from our program, exhibition opportunities. I really, really believe that more than anything right now, artists need that. They need to be able to have some ways to move forward, and we feel responsibility to that. We have such a great active alumni program where we actually have galleries where we actually sell their work year round, so they don't have to apply to get into a gallery. We do curate from their work, but we also have curators who look at their work on our website, and otherwise we make connections for them. So it's community, and then just like what Christopher said, it's the experience, but also the experience of seeing these amazing thought leaders. My first teaching job was at Chautauqua in 1992, And then I met the president of the NEA, who's dealing with the whole Robert Mapplethorpe mess. And I talked to him afterwards for a long time, and I'll never forget that conversation and that moment in history. So there's tremendous amount of crossover. And so I think that there's just a lot there to carry with you for the rest of your life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautifully said, Sharon. I think deep in the belief of McDowell, and probably for all of us, is the sense that artists, art makers, creative people are the ones that lead us, you know, and they do so because by their nature, they are risk takers, and by their nature, they experiment, and by their nature, they allow themselves to fail. And those are such important attributes of human people, of human souls, that I think that's sort of a backbone of what we think about when we think about the world that McDowell, you know, contributes to in some way, shape, or form. There are some people that come to McDowell once, have a great experience, but don't choose to come back. There are many that apply to come back, and they can after 2 years or 3 years of absence. And there are so there's a family of people who've been at McDowell several times in their creative journeys. And you know, there's a playwright I'm thinking of who, when you speak to her, said, I came as like a downtown solo artist. I didn't have a practice at all. I was just among, you know, sometimes Pulitzer Prize winners, sometimes people who've had a huge body of work. And now I go back to McDowell, and, you know, she's herself, you know, a Tony Award winning musical theater artist who wasn't even writing theater for that kind of audience and wasn't writing musicals. She was writing sort of very, very personal performance art. So we've been able to sort of be there for her at various inflection moments in her career as she's reached beyond her fingertips, which most great artists do. They don't repeat themselves. And so when they apply again, it's like, oh my God, this person did this, and now they're there, and they want to go there. That feels like an opportunity. After you're at McDowell, we do use all of our social media capabilities to amplify your work, so that if a book gets published or something's in a journal, or you have a gallery show or a show is opening, we will certainly amplify that to the greater public. We also do panels online. We have a work, an ongoing with the 92nd Street Y program, so that we get the word out there, not just about our artists, but also about what is happening, what are the challenges for artists right now. But I think we really, really believe in the bodies of work, and want to be there for people over the long, long period of time, longer arc.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So we're at the end of our program. Christopher, Sharon, Philip, thank you for your generosity. Thank you for the insight. I encourage everyone that joined us today to spend some time on your respective websites, read all of the details, find out those deadlines, apply. So everyone stay safe. Thank you to New York Academy of Art for, you know, being a platform for these dynamic and important conversations that are free and open to the public. And I just want to wish everyone a good evening, and looking forward to the spring. Take care, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you
Dexter.
so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Peter.
nice to meet
Thank
you.
you, Dexter. Nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
it's great really meeting
Same
everyone. It was
here.
wonderful.
Bye.
Thanks.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Stay healthy.